Good day, everyone. We are back with another webinar, 5 Steps to Convert Guests into Loyal Customers, presented by Stay in Touch, IBC Hospitality, and Triptease. Want to thank our guests for joining us today. I'm your host, Frigola, and I'm joined by my panel today. First up is Chief Tease at Triptease, Charlie Osmond. Charlie started his first business, Fresh Minds, after studying engineering at Oxford University. Whilst building this business, he was named UK Young Entrepreneur of the Year by Esquire magazine and profiled in Seth Godin's best-selling book, Icarus Deception. Passionate about improving online travel, Charlie launched Triptease in 2013 to help hotels deliver a better digital experience and increase direct bookings. Triptease pioneered the direct booking movement and quickly gained notoriety for its first product, Price Check. Joining us from IBC Hospitality is President and Founder Pamela Barnhill. A second-generation hotelier, Pamela Barnhill is President and COO of InSuites Hospitality Trust, President and founder of IBC Hospitality Technologies, and founder of Independent Lodging Executive Summit. She serves on the board of directors for the Independent Lodging Industry Association and is an active member of Hotel Electronic Distribution Network Association, Hospitality Sales Marketing Association International, and the Asian American Hotel Owners Association. And rounding out our panel is Hayat Adhanom, a sales director for Stay in Touch. He oversees growing partnerships in the U.S., Southwest, and Western Europe. Hayat has been in the cloud SaaS space for over 8 years, working with industries from healthcare to education, and now in hospitality, helping expand Stay in Touch's global reach. He enjoys working with companies ahead of technology curve that are always displaying foresight in their respective industries and disrupting the paradigm via innovation. With that said, I am going to once again welcome our audience and give you guys a brief run through of what we'll be covering today. First up is loyalty starts on the hotel's website, which is an important thing to start off with because that is typically when a hotel first comes in contact with you. Retaining guest information is essential to driving repeat business. How to provide the kind of exceptional service that is the bedrock for customer loyalty. Creating hybrid loyalty reward programs that incentivize guests to book direct next time, and staying engaged with guests after their stay. We'll cover all this and more during this webinar. And at this time, I do want to encourage our audience to stay engaged the whole way and also send in your questions. We want this to be a robust discussion. We want to incorporate your questions in here and have our panelists address them directly. And before we jump off with the first discussion point, I do want our audience to engage in 2 back-to-back polls. The first being, you launched this poll, does your hotel have a clear loyalty strategy in place? Yes, somewhat, no. I'll give you guys a few seconds and I'll launch the results. About 15 seconds more here. All right, closing the poll now, sharing the results. Does your hotel have a clear loyalty strategy in place? 23% say yes, 64% say somewhat, and 14% say no. So most of you guys are in the middle here. You probably have something in place, but not something that is being as effective as you want it to be, and that is why we are here to discuss all that and more. Now we're moving on to our second poll. What part of your hotel's loyalty strategy needs the most work? Developing incentive-based loyalty programs, promoting your loyalty programs online, providing service that converts guests into loyal customers, and training employees to be advocates for loyalty programs. Give you guys another seconds here. Right, 10 more seconds. All right, I am closing the poll now and sharing the results. What part of your hotel's loyalty strategy, oh, that went away really quickly, needs the most work? 39% of you say developing incentive-based loyalty programs. 22% say promoting your loyalty programs online. 22% say providing service that converts guests into loyal customers. And 17% say training employees to be advocates for your loyalty programs. And so throughout this discussion, or this webinar, we're going to touch on all 4 of these. And so with that said, I am going to turn it over to our first presenter, Charlie, who's going to talk about loyalty starts on the hotel's website. Charlie?
Hello, hi. Thank you very much. Let's jump on to the next slide. I will begin. So a brief intro to me. I'm the Chief Tease at TripTease. We provide a set of tools that sit on top of hotels' websites and their booking engine. It's like a layer of personalization that sits on top of what the hotel already has. Sorry, could I slide, please? Wait in the poll. So while I just wait for that, I will begin. So when I think about loyalty, actually, I really think about the 2 very separate decisions that guests are making. Back up, please. Sorry, up a couple. Back and back. Okay, back. Thank you. Okay, great. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Slide directions this evening, or this morning, depending on where you are in the world. So yeah, when I think about loyalty, I'm thinking of the 2 very different decisions that guests are making. The first one being, which hotel do I want to stay at? And there's a question of loyalty towards a property and whether you're going to come back. And the second one is how I'm going to book that hotel. And then it's a question of, do I feel loyal to brand.com, booking on the direct site? Do I feel loyal to booking on an OTA because they have my credit card details? If it's booking.com or something, I always know I can cancel. So there are really these 2 aspects when I think of loyalty, and I'm going to actually address first of all how do we drive loyalty to the channel, because we want to make sure we're big believers at TripTease in driving direct, and that direct is the best channel, and also I think a particularly important channel when you then think about the opportunity for CRM and the opportunity to build an ongoing lasting relationship with guests that drive long-term loyalty. So for us, the best place to start with loyalty is that initial interaction on the hotel website. Okay, so next slide, please. Yeah, this is not me, but this is how I have sometimes felt in the past, and I'm sure I'm not alone, when booking a hotel website. In fact, it was 4 or 5 years ago when booking my family holiday that I realized how painful this was probably the most painful thing in my whole life. Every year I'd be going away for a week, and yet it seemed to take me 3 or 4 weekends in a row just to book the thing. And it was that sort of pain that made me think there must be a better way, and we need to do a new startup and see if we can help fix it. But the problem with this sort of pain of booking, some people claim it's 38 websites that people visit, that the average person takes 28 days. The problem with it is that if it's a painful experience for guests to use a website, then you're certainly not going to be driving loyalty towards booking that way again. Next slide, please. So one of the things, we're quite lucky as TripTease. We sit across 17,000 hotel websites and hundreds of different booking engines and CMSs, and we're able to see the different performance that different hotels are getting based on their booking engine, for example. And so what you see here on the left are the conversion rates from search to book of various booking engines. I'm afraid I can't tell you who comes out on top. We keep that stuff secret. But the point of the chart is to show you, there are hotels who, from search to conversion, are getting over 5% conversion rate, which is really high compared to the vast majority who are under really 3.5, under 3, I think. So there's a really big discrepancy between the hotels who are doing this well and those that aren't. And when I think about what this actually really indicates, it's that a lower conversion rate really is demonstrating that your website is failing to satisfy guests, right? It's not delivering them what it is they were looking for, and for me, that's an immediate high chance, therefore, that they're not, they didn't experience what they wanted. They're less likely to be loyal. So the first thing I wanted to say is there's a whole bunch of basics that I don't think all hotels have really nailed yet, and that's the starting point. And so next slide, please. So the basics that make sure that your hotel web experience is good and at least is achieving satisfaction are, click please. Thank you. First of all, managing parity. You cannot expect people to pay more to book on your website. That's just not fair, not right, and what doesn't happen. We find that when a hotel is being undercut somewhere on the web, the conversion rate on the hotel website goes down by 30%. So you've got to make sure that you've got the best price, or at least it's not a beaten price. The second is you've got to make it really clear those key pages that people are looking at when they arrive on your website, that they're really clear and easy for people to find. So that's the gallery, its offers, and its photos and more information about rooms. It's worth actually just looking at those, going back to your own website now, standing 10 foot away from your computer screen and trying to see, can you see the clear links that take people to those places they're most likely to want to go? Because this is all about reducing friction to make that web experience good, so they're more likely to come back and book through it again. And one of the tips to find more ways to reduce friction, one of the things we do a lot is record user sessions on websites. So either that can be going to something like usertesting.com, where they will find random members of the public who will video themselves as they try to make a booking through your website, and by watching what they do, you get a really good sense. Or other tools like Full Story, where you can track people's mouse movements, so you can see where they're getting stuck. So there's a lot of great ways now to really understand what's going wrong if you're not driving high levels of conversion. And then the final one is actually giving people a reason to book direct. One reason to book via an OTA is they've already got my credit card details. So you need equally as a hotel to give people a reason to book direct, which it may be a free upgrade if available is a popular one. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that costs you money. Okay, so these basics are, perhaps things that you've heard before, but too often I think are ignored. And if you don't get them right, you've kind of fallen before you've even started driving loyalty of channel choice. So you've got to get those basics. But what's next? Well, when we think about what's really going to drive sort of next level improvements in direct bookings for hotels and make them loyal to booking direct, really. There are two key areas. So one is personalization of the site experience in general, and the second one is bringing hospitality, that experience of hospitality from the hotel into the web experience, because that's something that hotels uniquely can do that the OTAs can't. And if you're able to bring that sense of hospitality of who you are as a property into the web experience, it's far more likely to engage people and make them loyal. But first of all, on the personalization, I'm sure you've all seen the sort of pop-ups you get if you're on a OTA, those sort of maddening, there are 50 people looking at this hotel right now and there's only 2 rooms left, the kind of thing that almost gives you a cardiac arrest. I'm not sure necessarily that that's right for hotels to be quite so pushy, should we say, but certainly there are benefits of nudge messaging, so tracking what users are doing, looking at their behavior, and then personalizing with some dynamic content on the website, maybe an offer, maybe a price comparison, because they've done a price check on the hotel website by giving them a comparison to other OTAs, and that gives them the confidence they need to book direct. So putting dynamic, personalized content it demonstrates really that as a hotelier you're being attentive to them, just as you would be if a guest walked in the front door. And next slide. When I think about the ultimate way of, as I say, bringing hospitality to the web experience, I think that messaging and live chat is probably what we're going to really see grow in the next few years. This is something we do quite a lot with hoteliers, and if I put an example here just to kind of demonstrate this. Live chat isn't about someone saying, "Oh hi, how long's the swimming pool?" and getting a response. It's an opportunity to engage someone in a human way, right? To, as I say, bring hospitality to the web experience. And when you do that and you start engaging people, then you really drive up loyalty. So one of the interesting thing here that I see from the agent who's responded to a question about Edinburgh is they've asked an open question. So the third question you can see is, or third comment is, where will you be coming from? And that instantly creates a conversation. And it's that experience of human interaction that I think can drive loyalty to the booking process. So that's the first set of tips, ways to drive direct and loyalty towards a direct channel. And as I said at the beginning, one of the reasons why that's really important is obviously you're getting guest contact information when they're booking direct. And if you're getting that guest contact information, you've got an ability to have an ongoing communication via email, for example, with guests. So I've got a couple of slides of why that's so important. And thanks here to Del Ross, who is a great hospitality consultant, came and spoke recently at the Direct Booking Summit for some of the data here. So, thinking about what is the best way to have an ongoing communication with guests to drive loyalty. One option is social media. It's got a massive reach. There's sort of evolving ways that you can advertise. There's opportunities as these new advertising models come available, opportunities to get in first and make some headway with it. But so far, broadly, via social media, it's pretty hard to reach people in a way that drives repurchase. Email, on the other hand, has a massive reach, right? Everyone has an email address. Consumers say they prefer email for promotional messaging, and the conversion rate of it, say, versus social media is really high. So the opportunity to be capturing emails and to be having a good CRM program that keeps people interested in the property, that alerts them to upcoming offers, is massive. And next slide, please. Just the last few tips on how, what do you need to be thinking about if you're building out a CRM program. The first one is really important, which is segmentation. If you've got guests coming throughout the year from different places for different reasons, then you actually need to communicate to them in different ways, right? There are different things that are going to interest them. And all the research shows time and again that if you're running a CRM program and you're emailing guests in different ways, they're far more likely to open your communication if it's personalized to them, and they're far more likely to respond. So segmenting your database is essential. Automation, so sometimes that's scheduled campaigns. So you know that there's people who booked last year for Thanksgiving, and so you're going to schedule an email that goes out to them 60 days ahead of that, for example. Or it might be like triggered communications. Someone's taken an action, maybe they booked, maybe it's something else. They've come back to your website, they've looked at certain pages, and based on that, you can trigger automated messages. I think at the same time you need to be careful about recency and frequency, like how much you're sending messages to people. And there's a particular issue if it's a hotel group, because often different properties within a group might be wanting to send different messages, and you can get overload. And really, but all of this, everything is about constant, ongoing testing and learning. Trying segments, sending them personalized messages, seeing if they resonate. I mean, if they don't, try something else. So I guess summing up from me, it's all about starting to bring hospitality onto the website as early as you can, because that increases your chances of getting a direct booking. And if you get a direct booking, you're far more likely to have someone's email address and far more likely to then be able to set up a really good CRM campaign.
Awesome. Thanks, Charlie. And just a follow-up question here. You talk about segmenting your audience and automation and how you can reach your audience with the right message at the right time. But interesting point about the recency and frequency. You don't want to overload. What is a comfortable or a sufficient amount of times that you should be sending out these emails?
I think that's really, I'm afraid to say, it's really hard to answer the question, because so if at the moment I travel a lot between London and New York, at least twice every month. So for me, if I was receiving a message that was because if I was staying at a hotel each time, that was more frequent than every couple of weeks, that could be fine. Whereas if I've clearly demonstrated I come to your property for Christmas each year, then perhaps sending me offers all the way through the summer isn't that relevant. So I do think, again, it actually just comes back to segmentation. The one thing I'd add to that is, in general, digital companies that send lots of emails generally find that they're far more cautious about email volume than actually than users feel. So often companies think, oh, I can only send one message every month, and when they start sending one a week, they actually find that they get the same open rate, the same amount of engagement from them. So actually sometimes I think people are overcautious, and you can usually go a little bit stronger. The best thing is just to measure it. Try sending, see if you get lots of unsubscribes.
All right, thanks so much, Charlie. I'm going to pass it over to you, Hyatt, who's also going to talk about the importance of capturing guest information during the stay.
Thanks, Ree, and some great points that that Charlie brought up. I think that it's kind of a blended approach. It's definitely an equation. There's no silver bullet or right algorithm of approaches, but I think that there's some practical approaches that can be taken. We're looking at your current setup that most hotels have, and I think the first place to start is the fact that OTA bookings are, that is kind of a required strategy to have. You have to have exposure on the OTAs and the third-party sites. But with that said, typically you will not get a lot of personal information about that OTA guest. So leveraging technology, within the hotel, whether it's your property management system, whether it's texting, like Charlie mentioned, and trying to create strategy around getting to know that guest a lot more. And I think that guests will appreciate personalization, the fact that you want to get to know them, develop a process, a conditioning of your staff to ask certain questions that allow you to market to them and create a very tailored and personalized messaging, even after they leave your property. In addition to that, mobile check-in and self-service are a great way to start, that are very discreet in terms of asking for guest information, whether it's email, whether it's phone number, that can really allow you to enhance that guest experience, whether it's asking for a phone number so you can text them about events going on in the area, whether it's texting them about events at the property. But the way that we've seen it here at Stay in Touch is a mobile property management system enables that those touch points, right? You want to increase the amount of times that you can get in front of the guests using mobile technology, and through a mobile check-in, you can ask for that information, and it's not intrusive, right? It's very practical. The guests will more than likely provide that information to you, and that allows you to continue to communicate with them while they're on property, and then through the other systems they use, like a CRM, after they leave your property. And I think, when you talk about personalization, we just think about it as consumers. And, I've been on a couple webinars, and I always go back to the fact that we are consumers, right? And, we think about how people use things like media, how they use services now. It's all about personalization. If you use Netflix, if you use YouTube, Amazon, it's going to give you recommendations. And, I as a consumer appreciate that, because that the service that I'm using knows who I am, they know my preferences, they know my purchasing behavior, so a hotel can do something very similar to that. And I think that technology is such a central point of delivering exceptional service, right? That's the way that you're going to be able to continue to connect with the guest even before they arrive on property, and it's the way that you automate your communication and really personalize that guest experience, which therefore will create loyalty. I mean, if we think about a pleasant service experience, whether it's retail, whether it's with a financial institution, whatever services or products you're using, convenience and control equals value to a consumer and to a guest. So putting together a blended and a diverse model of giving guests options, giving them technology to enhance their experience and give them more control is going to be crucial. This stat I think is extremely important in terms of the impression that your hotel leaves on a guest. The fact that 72% of consumers have a more positive view of a company if it provides a mobile service experience. This is a Gartner report, and I think that that's a no-brainer, right? Think about all the services you use right now, right? Whether, again, it's banking, media, retail, it's a prerequisite to use a mobile device when you're engaging with them, and it's also on demand. That's what we're dealing with right now, is an on-demand culture of immediacy. So you want technology that allows you to address that, that on-demand guest, and provide them additional access points to your property. And I think that when we look at some of the other stats here, and this is from a Focusrite study here, these stats are very, very telling as well. The booking process starts with mobile now. I mean, this stat says 32% of guests want to make their bookings via mobile devices. I think there's a study that Microsoft actually published saying that over 80% of bookings will now come from mobile devices by the year 2020. So this is only going to continue to rise. We've seen a 50% increase in mobile bookings for the last 3 years, and I think that that's a very obvious sign that mobile is not going to decrease, it's only going to increase. So you want a consistent mobile experience from booking to pre-arrival to on-property to post-stay. And that control is, again, crucial to the modern mobile guest. We think about business travelers. We think about when you're going on vacation, having that ability to update your experience or to tailor your experience, and that's going to lead to that loyalty. The convenience that you provide to me as a service provider is the reason I come back. I mean, there's so many options now, right? Whether it's staying at a hotel or media or retail, there's so many options that the internet provides that you want to differentiate yourself. You want to show a commitment to that guest experience. And mobile check-in, self-service check-in shows that diverse approach to the guest experience, and guests appreciate that commitment, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a couple slides here. So when we talk about kind of the guest experience and using technology around that, you want to address that virtual guest, you want to address that digital guest. So it's a part of the equation, and it should be just as attentive as your staff on-property experience. And it also allows you to be a lot more proactive, which again provides a much more seamless guest experience, which will lead to loyalty, right? So you want to have a system that allows for, or a mobile check-in capability that allows for the guests to indicate arrival times. They can make requests. They can communicate any special requests, or they can communicate anything about their arrival, their departure, so that your hotel can be better prepared and drive that loyalty approach that you're looking for. And then when we think about how staff and how that on-property experience kind of translates from the mobile check-in, the ability to capture information when a guest arrives on property, ask them about, Charlie brought up a great example of, asking open-ended questions, getting to know where the guest is coming from, and tracking that information so that you can communicate to them. If a guest is from New York and they're coming to London to stay for a couple nights, you can communicate to them more effectively and more personalized, in a more personalized manner. And I think that that technology of automation and giving that guest that automation option is something that your guests will truly appreciate, and it will show tangible results when it comes to guest satisfaction, and then in turn your loyalty program. And so this is just a quick example of guests that have used mobile checkout. Again, it allows them to indicate that they're checking out of the hotel. It gives them extra convenience. I don't have to worry about going to the front desk to check out for the hotel. It allows the hotel to turn that room quicker, right, and get it back into the inventory. But again, it's very discreet. But it's the details that matter, and the details that will add up and prove to show or prove to increase that loyal guest.
All right, just to follow up here, Hyatt. Can you give us some examples of maybe some best practices when it comes to managing loyalty communication? Well,
I think that Charlie brought up a great couple examples. It is a layered approach. It's not just one system. Whether it's the PMS, whether it's your website, whether it's your CRM. I think that it's key to have a consistent mobile experience when it comes to guest interaction, when it comes to communication, then coming up with a plan to communicate to those guests based on the information about them, whether they're a business traveler, whether they're a leisure traveler, whether they come in there once a year, and kind of segmenting, like Charlie had mentioned, that communication and just staying in front of that guest. You can let them know about what's going on with the property. You can let them know about upcoming promotions. And I think that it is definitely kind of a multifaceted holistic approach where you have multiple systems that run in tandem to ensure optimal communication with your guests.
I actually think that's a really good point, but on top of that, it's not just about the communication between you and the guests, right? It's about the communication between your systems. Right. So if your PMS is speaking to your booking engine, or if you have live updates on your website that really give guests or potential guests insight into your best offerings, it's really going to increase the opportunity or the likelihood of conversions there. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Pamela, who's going to speak on creating hybrid loyalty reward programs that incentivize guests to book direct next time. Pamela?
Thanks, everyone. I sure appreciate you being here, and absolutely agree with what both Charlie and Hyde have been saying. So, it definitely starts from a first point of presence from your website. You've got to have great pictures. You've got to make sure it's easy and fast to use. And we come at this loyalty from a slightly different direction. One of the things that's very important to us as hotel owners and operators is making sure that we go ahead and have programs that drive direct bookings for people that want to accumulate free nights, but then they also want immediate gratification. We've seen a transition in what people are looking for. So one of the big things that we're taking a look at in terms of providing tools that drive direct bookings to websites are retargeting to those websites. We help hoteliers build websites if they need them. We offer a proprietary booking engine. And of course, one of the big things that we do is we have a patent pending loyalty program. And it used to be, we built this patent pending loyalty program as a way for over 1 million hoteliers to drive conversions directly on their websites, but then found that there was a need from this generation that is really, really driving a lot of booking decisions for immediate gratification. And so one of the things that we now take a look at is how we can do that. So again, it really comes back to making sure you have direct bookings. Years ago we called it travel agent commissions. Now we call it customer acquisition costs. But it's so important to realize how much revenue you get by channel, and make sure you have a CRS or a tool that helps you monitor how much revenue you get by channel, so that you can be sure to maximize certain channels that drive more net RevPAR than just total RevPAR. And again, a study by Accenture found that 77% of all consumers participate in a loyalty program. Whether they opted in or whether they were put into it by their own choice, they are definitely being marketed to, and they are definitely being enjoying these benefits of being part of discounted pricing or additional benefits that come with being part of programs. Next slide, please. So because 8 out of 10 travelers consider a hotel loyalty program before booking that hotel, they're looking around, they're shopping, they're going to Google. Well, they're not only going to Google, they're starting with Google. And with Google's new programs, one of our more popular programs that we offer is a direct booking link from Book on Google or Book on Trip, Book on Kayak, Book on Trivago, straight into the hotel's landing page or the hotel's website. So while those guests are taking a look at so many websites, many times they're doing it from a meta channel, which is so important to have an official website listing on the meta channels. And it's not particularly easy or cheap. So you need to make sure you work with someone that doesn't just hit your credit card for thousands of dollars per month, but they actually help educate or manage the process. And one of the big benefits that IBC offers in managing Meta is we actually cover the first part of the Meta charges, which is huge. When we were working with another company, they would personally hit my credit card for thousands of dollars per month and had a hard time delivering the ROI numbers. That's when I decided we needed a team to do this internally, And as such, as part of the Independent Lodging Industry Association, was able to chat with other hoteliers about what was important to them and make sure that we do the same thing. So we help hoteliers drive more direct bookings, whether it be through a nice website, retargeting, loyalty, or through these meta channels. So whether you want a loyalty program that is just for your chain of hotels, or if you want a loyalty program that offers breadth in terms of accumulating free nights or instant rewards, there are a handful of solutions out there. It's just important to take a look at them and take a look at the cost, because many times you'll find that by the time you layer on some of these costs, it does equal out what you would have been paying to an OTA, which is where some people do argue that if you can avoid the brain damage and just go through the OTAs, but I would argue that that's not the solution, that you should be fighting to get those direct bookings, because you get that email address and then you can target them for more direct bookings and repeat business for free later. Now, one of the big arguments is that people do give their email address when they check in. But on the other argument, people have multiple email addresses. So the email address that they give when they make a purchase is the real email address. We have found 6 out of 10 times that people will give their alternate, or what I call a fake or a marketing email that they don't shop on, or that they do shop on, but they don't actually monitor when they're making these types of decisions when they think people are going to be marketed to. So it's just really, really important to get the email address at the time of purchase, because that is what we consider to be the real, the true email address that people use. Next slide. So again, we have a patent pending program called Independent Incentives, and it offers not only the ability to have accumulation of nights around the world at over 1 million different places of lodging, but you can get instant gratification with gift cards, e-gift cards, in North American favorites like Amazon, Starbucks, and then of course we are in over 30 countries with e-gift cards that work in those regions. And one of the things, and we've not announced this yet, but we'll go ahead and announce it here, is starting next month we're going to be offering cash back as well. So while our loyalty program is embedded in the booking engine on a hotel's website, very visually appealing, 4 steps or less, we are going to be doing cash back, and then shortly we're going to be offering the loyalty program without our booking engine for people that really feel passionate or have signed long-term agreements with their current booking engine to layer in this loyalty program. And I would say that it really is a hybrid of a loyalty and a rewards, because it helps people not only feel like they can continue to book in one place and accumulate, but they also can get something immediately. They can get that reward. Next slide. Out of sight, but still in mind, staying engaged with guests after their stay. It is so important, as Charlie had mentioned, about email marketing. It's, you have to be very careful not to email them too much, but not to necessarily ignore them either. And so we generally try and keep in touch with our guests on a regular basis by providing offers, because we have that personal data that they will find to be useful, as well as giving them the opportunity to use their rewards or their free nights all the way around the world at over 1 million different places of lodging, as well as 500 e-gift cards. So it helps them feel like they can earn in one place and use in another, which a lot of people really do enjoy doing. We work very closely with TrustU in terms of gathering feedback and then providing that feedback back to Google, which helps with search results. And we also have a plan in place to, both for the hotels we own and manage, but also for our own company, in soliciting feedback, both positive and negative, so we can improve what we do. And again, get those guests to tell us what's important to them so that we can make that happen on their future repeat business. And again, going back to what Charlie was saying from a CRM, that helps you understand what kind of pillows they like, what kind of things that they want, so you can automatically give it to them, and it helps them feel that loyalty to you instead of to an alternate channel. Free, next slide. Using loyalty programs after checkout. Again, giving people what they want when they're there, keeping in touch with them through email marketing, calling them as necessary if it's a group or if it's a sports team to ensure that they're going to stay with you next time. Getting that customer engagement so that they go ahead and they do review you, they do give you that feedback, they do follow you on Instagram with their pictures of their stay or the area. That is so important. Instagram is across multi-generations and globally, much more so than Facebook at the moment, which is so important in terms of crossing everyone. And of course, pictures are worth a million words. And then developing strategic partnerships. I mean, it's so important. Like one of the things we did in one of our hotels that we own and manage was this week we had a sponsored happy hour by one of the local wineries. And it's a fun event. Social media went crazy over it. It's just important to have fun, feel authentic, be authentic, get your staff involved, get the community involved, and everyone has so much more fun that way.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that insight, Pamela. So have you ever felt that guests, or maybe expressed to you, there are too many steps in signing up for the loyalty program, or that it's too cumbersome?
Yes, and that was some of the negative feedback that we took early on, which is why we allow for sign up through social media or email. So that way you can accumulate your accounts together, and you can have one place so it's easy. I mean, personally, I always forget my passwords, and I find it very frustrating to have to click the forget password button. But if it's all tied into social media logins, it automatically flows, and it's much simpler and easier.
Awesome. All right. Thank you to our presenters for laying out their insights. And we're going to turn it over to the audience. Charlie, I'm going to present the first question to you. Very simple one. Does loyalty exist anymore?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I mean, I think yes, it does. Of course, it does to an extent. I think it's a false dichotomy. That's why you caught me out for a moment. It's not that it either does exist or doesn't. It's that different segments of different markets are loyal in different ways, right? So I might be loyal to hotels in, like for example, I'm in Singapore right now, and I'm staying in a different hotel than I stayed in last time in Singapore because this is a city I don't know very well, and I wanted to try somewhere different. So yeah, I'm not in a sense being loyal to the hotel there. I'm loyal direct booker, of course, always. Whereas other places I go to, I want to keep returning. So I think it depends on many different factors. But certainly there's a potential to influence people who have a potential to be loyal. So I think that all is not lost. I know some people think that loyalty's over and that people just want to sort of pick a commoditized hotel offering based on location and price, and I don't think that's true. So I'd say a more nuanced answer.
Okay. And you did mention earlier, which is a nuanced approach, that being human on the website is important. Great in theory, but is that a lot of work for hotels?
Oh, that's a very good question. Yeah. So what we're seeing is that if you've got guests right now who are on your website and who are thinking of booking but they have questions, then in fact what happens is the conversion rate is lower. So certainly there's an argument to say that if people are there with questions that will help them convert, then hotels just need to find a way in this new world where people expect to be able to leave messages or have live chat experiences. The hotels just have to find a way to do it. That's one thing. I think the other is actually what we find is you can reduce the volume of phone calls, and actually chat is a way of being much more efficient and reducing costs. But the third thing, and sort of the main area that we experimented with and built out, is the amount of automation that you can have in live chat. So while I'm not a fan of fully automated conversations, because I don't think the AI is quite good enough yet. We find that about 84% of questions that guests are asking on a hotel website can be sort of automated in response. And so, in fact, the volume of requests that a hotel gets suddenly is actually far, far lower.
Awesome. All right, Hi, this one's for you. What are some examples of how mobile check-in can actually improve guest loyalty?
Well, I think it's an interesting question. I think that it's all about, proof is in the pudding, and I think that you want to provide the guest choices, right? And you want to provide them a proactive guest journey, right? And part of that is offering them options, whether it's do an upgrade the day before they arrive, or if it's checking in early. And these are things that may seem like they're not tangible, but from a revenue standpoint, they're tangible, but also from an experience standpoint, they're tangible. So, I think that it's, those things add up to an experience that allows for a guest to have a much more, for a guest to take a little bit more ownership over their experience, which in turn they will appreciate. Now, I think that there's other more tangible aspects to how it can improve guest loyalty. I mean, I think when you're using mobile check-in as a guest, you can enter in certain information. Charlie had mentioned in the beginning, SMS texting, allowing for real-time engagement with the guest. Having a guest initiate that from mobile check-in will allow you to have a deeper connection with the guest. So there's a lot of different aspects to it. I think that giving the guest as many options as possible, that's key. And then coming up with a plan for follow-up. So if a guest does want to text with you, or if they enter in their preferences via mobile check-in, that you communicate to them while they're on property, and also after. When you have those life cycle marketing campaigns, you know what the guest likes to do. We know what their preferences are from that mobile engagement, and you can communicate with them more effectively from there.
Awesome. All right, Pamela, I'm going to address the last question to you. Is there a risk that loyalty programs actually create more competition as guests can stay at the other hotels within the loyalty program network?
No, I think that's a great question. I mean, we've certainly thought about that. Kind of like what Charlie was saying, I like staying at different places even when I go back to the same location, just because I want a different experience. I want a little bit something fresh. Very seldom do I stay at the same hotel. So if you can have a loyalty program that then drives you the full guest information, that, in my opinion, seems valuable, because people are going to be booking anyway in other places, so why not pick channels that help you get that full guest information, and then help you promote your hotel for new and repeat guests. I definitely can see the argument for why would I want a loyalty program if it would include people accumulating free nights at other places. But I just think it's the right thing to do in order to drive some added value. There's only so many, especially in this economy when we're all pushing 90+% occupied. There's only so many free upgrades you can give, only so many early check-ins, late checkouts. You need something a little bit different to make them feel like, awesome, maybe I should consider staying there again, because that was an incredible stay, I had great service, and I went ahead and got XYZ.
Awesome, and the exposure is definitely important. So maybe it's not an option. Hotels have to just sit on the sidelines and hope that all of their guests are going to come to them. You've got to have that reach, and part of that means being side by side or being in the same space as maybe your competitors.
Yeah.
All right. So with that said, I want to thank our guest again for joining us, or our presenters for giving their insight, and I want to especially thank our audience for sticking with us the whole way through. The webinar recording, as well as the slide deck asset, will be available within 24 hours. We'll send that over to all attendees and registrants. And I hope you guys come back again. We do this twice a month, so stick with us. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Free.